Kate, can you take us through what the leaders are saying?
Well, as you mentioned, Donald Trump says there's a new deal between
country that needs this product, but also has no energy and wants to build data centers. And when you look at that picture, you ask yourself, well, why are you doing this to yourself? But that's the reality that Canadian negotiate.
Because you might be having to on-pass that 50% tariff onto them.
Yeah, that's a great question because the U.S. consumer doesn't quite understand why there's inflation on our prices. So when we have these conversations, either with stores or when we have consumers shopping directly on our e-com, they don't quite understand why we have to hike the prices so up. And we say it's out of our control. We try to explain, but it's interesting.
Tariff rate and what the Americans are putting on the table. Auto remains a sticking point. Sources say the latest U.S. offer would lower the tariffs on Canadian-made vehicles to 15%, down from the 25% now in place. And it could go as low as 7.5%, depending on how much U.S. content is used. But sources
for the moment, and that's the concern, right? Because these tariffs were very specifically designed to squeeze businesses, to squeeze industries, to squeeze regions and provinces as well. And remember, the Canadian economy was weak coming into this trade war. It was made weaker by the first round of tariffs. It would have been made weaker by the second round. And yes, the Canadian economy, we've talked about this before, has been more resilient.
Bad decisions that make no sense.
Is Donald Trump's tariff war against Canada actually hurting the US economy more than it hurts Canada? While Washington continues to push aggressive trade demands, new economy figures reveal a simple truth. America cannot replace Canadian aluminum and clean energy, no matter how high tariffs goes. Welcome back to Joshu Reaction. I am Frank John, bringing you real facts, truth, and educational news analysis. Our faith and we are firmly stand that in God we trust. If you want clear, natural updates on US and Canadian news, make sure to hit the subscribe button right now. Let's break down the numbers. Look at the raw facts. Last year, the United States produced about 660,000 tons of raw aluminum while consuming over 4 million tons. Canada produced 3.3 million tons, supplying roughly 60% of all American aluminum needs. Why can't the US just build its own smelters? Because Canadian smelters run on abundant, low-cost hydropower. Building enough American power plants to match Canadian aluminum production would require the equivalent energy of 6 Hoover dams. The US simply does not have the separate electricity available today. Who actually pays for these tariffs? Tariffs are paid by American importers, not Canada. Major US companies like Ford have already paid hundreds of millions in duties, driving US aluminum prices to record highs. In auto negotiations, Washington offered to lower vehicle tariffs from 25% down to 15% or even 7.5% depending on US parts content because high tariffs exceed car manufacturers' entire profit margins. American retailers are now struggling to explain higher price tags to consumers. While tariffs could shave 0.5% of Canadian economy growth, Canadian businesses are adopting fast. Companies are doubling down on the Canadian domestic market by encouraging citizens to buy local while shifting exports toward Europe and Asia. In fact, Canada's overall reliance on the US market has already dropped from 76% to 72%. Now, I want to ask you two key questions. Should Canada use its hydropower and raw metals as direct trade leverage? Will rising inflation in America force Washington to back down before the midterms? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching Joshu Reaction, and always I said, in God we trust. God bless Canada, God bless America, and I'll see you in the next breakdown. Take care, talk soon. Bye bye.